Hi everyone, I'm Tom Fitton with Judicial Watch. I'm its president here in Washington, D.C., the anti-corruption watchdog group. Thanks for joining us on our weekly update here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and everywhere on the internet. A lot to talk about in terms of our anti-corruption work, major developments this week. Thanks, frankly, to the House Intelligence Committee, and lots of new information about what the State Department has in terms of Hillary Clinton records. You're not going to believe the astonishing number of records the State Department still has but is withholding. And then we have this big court fight that we're pursuing on behalf of a grieving father who's trying to get a Purple Heart awarded to his son posthumously after his son who was injured in the Fort Hood terrorist attack, and I'll tell you about that as well. First, the big news. Hillary Clinton colluded with the Russians to take down Donald Trump. That's the news this week. So how did it all happen? The House Intelligence Committee issued a subpoena and was willing to go to court for it, for the banking records of Fusion GPS, which is the firm linked to the infamous dodgy dossier used to target Donald Trump by everyone here in Washington, D.C., including the FBI, the Justice Department, Robert Mueller, James Comey, and Democrats on the Hill. And of course, the media was inflamed by it as well. It turns out, because of the threat to their banking records, it looks like Fusion GPS, the company, somehow leaked to the Washington Post the fact that it was Hillary Clinton's campaign and the Democratic National Committee that was paying the authors of the dossier. And we also know, generally speaking, we don't know for sure, but it's been reported widely that the dossier authors were talking to Russian officials who evidently were just making up stuff about Donald Trump. Now, why is this important? First of all, we didn't know about it before. Hillary Clinton, the DNC, and anyone else who was frankly in a position to know was either lying or misleading in terms of failing to disclose their connections to this dossier. And the specific connections were through Hillary Clinton's campaign lawyer and Democratic National Committee lawyer Marcus Elias, who through his law firm paid this company, this Fusion GPS. Now, why is this important? This dossier was used, it looks like, by the FBI in part to request and perhaps obtain a FISA warrant targeting the Trump team. Maybe even Donald Trump himself, we don't know. I know they tried to. And also, remember, Comey kind of waved this document around at Donald Trump in a one-on-one meeting he had with him in December of last year before he was president. And I remember thinking at the time that why was Comey threatening him with this document or highlighting this document to him, which basically had all sorts of salacious things that were obviously not true. Frankly, I saw it as a threat. You want to keep me as FBI director, so I keep stuff like this quiet. This is what I have on you. Another reason why Comey should have been fired. But this is major news, because compare and contrast the issue of the Trump Tower meeting. Remember that meeting Donald Trump Jr. had last year with a Russian lawyer, and supposedly the issue of Clinton connections to Russia came up at that meeting? Well, now there's a special counsel looking into that. And that was, quote, evidence of collusion. And the White House is being subjected to criminal investigation in part because of that meeting. So the question is Robert Mueller, who is, as you followed on our previous updates here and in our work, is terribly conflicted. Is he now going to be asking Hillary Clinton questions about her collusions with the Russians? And the incredible thing is, there's no evidence that Donald Trump colluded with Russia on trying to get and beat Hillary. But there is evidence now that Hillary Clinton and the Democratic National Committee was colluding with Russians to try to destroy Donald Trump. And not only that, but the FBI was also using the same firm that Hillary Clinton was paying. And the FBI at one point was considering, and we don't know if they paid them or not, but certainly wanted to pay them money to continue the dig up dirt on Donald Trump. We asked for information about the FBI's potential payments to the Fusion GPS and other documents that might detail what went on there. We've gotten the hand to the face. The FBI has told us that they can neither confirm nor deny that they have any such records, which isn't a yes, which isn't a no, which means you can't even find out what we might have. Well, isn't that interesting in light of what we now know? And I can tell you, I think the FBI is covering this up because they're embarrassed by the fact that they were essentially colluding with Hillary Clinton in this Get Donald Trump campaign. And I don't know what other information we need to confirm the point that the FBI and Justice Department were ruined under under Barack Obama. You had them protecting Hillary Clinton from the consequences of her illegal actions in her email system and targeting Donald Trump based on a political opposition paper created by Hillary Clinton, the candidate for president. And her FBI was using this, and their Justice Department was using this to try to get incredibly powerful FISA warrants to spy on a presidential campaign or his team or people close to him, or maybe the president himself at the time, candidate Trump. Really incredible. So is Mueller going to expand his investigation into what the FBI knew when it knew it? I have to think that Mueller knew about this dossier's ties to the Clinton camp as well. Hence the cover-up. And I said it once and I'll say it again. Mueller is compromised 6 ways to Sunday, and he can't be special counsel anymore. And I see finally the Wall Street Journal has agreed with me editorially. And of course, there are constitutional concerns about the Mueller operation, which I've gone into in the past, but to briefly summarize, he isn't subject to confirmation, Mueller is not subject to appropriate supervision from constitutional officers in the United States Justice Department. Essentially, he's been allowed to come in and do what he wants, and no one's supervising him. That's not the way it works in a republic. So Mueller's investigation's been compromised by this document, which by all accounts is still being used by the special counsel, was used previously by the FBI, to target Team Trump. Now the left says, well, this was all started by an opposition, a Republican opponent of President Trump during the primaries. Well, I don't see any evidence that they were paying Fusion GPS to go to Russia to talk to anyone, and we still don't know who funded it initially. And I have a feeling if we knew, or that information was helpful to the cause of the left, we would know. So it's not really going to change the fact that Hillary Clinton was involved in colluding with the Russians through this Fusion GPS, through her cutout at the law firm, through her lawyer, Mark Elias. Someone else has filed a complaint with the Federal Election Commission suggesting that they masked the payments to the Fusion GPS improperly, meaning they listed it as legal services when in fact it was political opposition research. And to misleadingly label that information on the federal forms was a violation of the law. But this is a test for Mueller or the special counsel, whoever they may be. Are they going to treat this evidence of collusion and meddling in the campaign? Not that it's necessarily a crime, but they are considering it one worth investigating. And statements about whether they were involved in it as an area of investigation. Are they going to ask President Obama what he knew about this dossier? The DNC is controlled by the sitting president if the party is in power of the presidency. The White House is a political operation. You can bet they knew about it. So this is a big test for Mueller. I suspect he's going to fail the test. I think the special counsel investigation is going to implode and end with a whimper, especially now that the appropriate targets have been identified, which is the politically protected Hillary Clinton and the Democratic National Committee. And unfortunately, Jeff Sessions has recused himself from any such role in monitoring what's going on and directing the special counsel. Rod Rosenstein, the number 2, who is stepped into Sessions' stead and is appointed Mr. Mueller is obviously oblivious to the conflicts and constitutional concerns, and I don't think he is going to do what is necessary to clean house. So this is why the president, however politically explosive it might be, should come in and shut down a special counsel operation. If there are crimes to be investigated, there's nothing that can't be investigated in the ordinary course by the Justice Department. And if there are crimes to be investigated, then there ought to have a constitutional special counsel that is like if the crimes are politically sensitive enough in terms of implicating Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, then maybe you bring in a special counsel with the checks in place that I think need to be there to investigate this. But Mueller is conflicted, especially in light of the news last week, in which I talked about that they had Mueller's FBI and Comey's FBI and the Justice Department watched as tens of millions of dollars went into the Clinton Foundation from the Russians in an attempt to sway decision-making on this Uranium One scandal. And the FBI and Justice Department minimized and slow-walked the investigation and protected Hillary Clinton. So now Mueller's implicated, and his decision, at least his decision-making, is implicated in this, in addition to all the other conflicts he has as being close to Comey and such. So this is a big deal. The Russia scandal is no longer about Donald Trump. It's about Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, their Justice Department and FBI. And neither agency can be trusted to tell us the truth about what's going on. As I said, they're stonewalling our request for information. Judicial Watch is in court trying to get the truth. And as I said in the beginning, the House Intelligence Committee actually went to court to try to get the truth. And we need more of that from the House and the Senate. And certainly we've been pushing hard on that. And the chairman of the committee, Devin Nunes, Republican from California, has been excoriated and attacked by the Democrats and the media for doing the right thing. And it shows you when you have committed leadership, you can get oversight that advances the public interest. So once again, this Clinton email, this scandal is a Clinton scandal, and we're in the middle of it. And it's going to get worse. I'm telling you, it's going to get worse for the Clinton and Obama machine. I guarantee you, simply because Judicial Watch is on it, and at least Congress is showing a modicum of interest in it. So that's good. And why it may get worse? Because there are new things that we have to evaluate from Hillary Clinton. Now, as I told you before, we already exposed how Hillary Clinton was basically running a cash machine operation out of the State Department. In addition to the monies flowing into their coffers at the Clinton Foundation, which was a political front operation, they had monies coming into their own personal bank accounts through Bill Clinton's speaking fees. And back in 2014, Judicial Watch exposed those speaking fees as being a total of $48 million, many of which came from foreign nationals, foreign governments, and corporations who have business before the government. Hillary Clinton promised to be no conflicts of interest and everything would be thoroughly vetted, but they rubber stamped them all. And one of those big checks for $500,000 came from Renaissance Capital, a Russia-connected firm in Russia that was tied to Uranium One and tied to this whole influence bribery scheme that the Obama gang knew about and that had Hillary Clinton as, in my view, a willing target and happy participant. So all of that is the context for why did Hillary not want to share her emails with anyone? Because I guarantee you there was information about the sorts of things we're talking about in them. And why did Hillary take all those emails and have to be hounded by Judicial Watch through court to get them back? Because she didn't want to know it. She didn't want everyone to know what she was up to. And why did Hillary Clinton attempt to delete half of the emails she took? Because they all weren't personal. We've known that, and Judicial Watch has proven that repeatedly. It's because I think there may be smoking gun emails in the material. So one of the things that Judicial Watch spurred was this FBI investigation into Hillary Clinton last year. It was a sham investigation, but at least they tried to do the minimum necessary to make themselves credible, and that included trying to recover Hillary Clinton's deleted emails or see if they could find them elsewhere. And the FBI was able to find tens of thousands of documents that Hillary Clinton evidently had spirited out of the State Department and didn't bother turning them back. How do we know that? Because we're in court. And the government just disclosed that the FBI gave the State Department 72,000 pages of Clinton records. As I said, many of which likely hadn't been turned over and will be brand new once they're analyzed and reviewed. Now, outrageously, the State Department is only reviewed about half of those records, and there's about 40,000 pages of records they haven't even looked at. And they've only released a small number of records. So we don't know when we're going to get these records. Actually, at the rate they're being released, they say we won't get them until at least the year 2020. And those are the records we only want to give us. They only want to give us. And in the year 2020, after we get all the records, then we start fighting over the records they don't want to give us. So we may not only be into the second Trump or whatever administration when we're fighting about this, but we could be 2 administrations away before we get this resolved if the State Department has its way. Why is Rex Tillerson's State Department sitting on a mother lode of Clinton records and stonewalling their release? That's the question. I've no doubt Donald Trump wants these records released quickly. I've no doubt. And here you have these agencies who think they're not only above the law, but they aren't even answerable to the people that we put in elected office to tell them what to do. The good news is that we had a court hearing about this. This is where all this was disclosed, and the State Department did say they were going to commit additional FOIA resources, meaning that presumably they could move through these records more quickly, but they refused to give us any promises as to whether that would happen or not. And Judge Boasberg, who is the judge that is handling this particular case, he issued an order afterwards demanding that the State Department explain how its anticipated increase in resources will affect processing of records in this case. So he wants answers. So I just, again, this is all part of a piece. We're being stonewalled by the deep state on anything that can help Hillary or hurt Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, whether it be Russia dossier or her Clinton emails generally, which may include information about her connections to the Russians generally. And I think the President and the White House need to intervene and get these records released immediately. Extreme transparency on behalf of the American people to expose this corruption. This is what they were put in office to do, and I suggest they do it. And but in the meantime, we're just going to keep on pushing in court. We're going to be pushing for these dossier records. We're going to be pushing for what the FBI was up to in terms of targeting Team Trump. We're asking the Justice Department to give us records about Mueller's and suing for records about Mueller's budget and such. We're holding this operation accountable. And I'm glad Congress is doing more work, but we're not going to rely on Congress to get the work done. We're going to do it ourselves. And so that's why Judicial Watch is so essential. We have another important case. And it's not about records, it's about helping a father, a grieving father who lost a son a few years ago. And our client's name is Howard M. Berry, and he's the father of late U.S. Army Sergeant Joshua A. Berry. And what is it we're trying to do? We're trying to help his father get his deceased son a posthumous award of a Purple Heart for injuries he sustained during the Fort Hood terrorist shooting. Now, you remember the Obama administration famously or infamously called the Fort Hood shooting a workplace violence. So Congress thankfully intervened and in 2014 passed the bill, and presumably the president signed it, President Obama at the time, saying that, look, if it was a terrorist attack and something like this is tied to foreign terrorists, it's an attack in the traditional military sense of the word, and therefore people involved and hurt during the attack would be eligible for medals. Now, Sergeant Berry was among the service members injured in the Fort Hood attack. And essentially what happened is Hassan was outside the room where Berry was present, behind closed doors, and Hassan was firing, according to Berry, 30 to 40 rounds, including rounds into the door. Berry dived out of the way and hurt his shoulder, and which had to be repaired surgically shortly thereafter. Now, there's no doubt he was injured during the attack. I won't get into the bureaucratic nonsense we've been and his family has been facing in trying to get him awarded the Purple Heart. I think 47 others have been awarded the Purple Heart. Incredibly, Berry hasn't been listed as one of them. And subsequent to that attack, he committed suicide. Looks like because of post-traumatic stress disorder. And so that was a real tragedy. He left behind a little girl and, of course, his father, who we're representing. And in our lawsuit, we have this nice picture of Sergeant Berry with President Obama. I don't know if we can see it on camera here, but you can probably see President Obama meeting with Sergeant Berry at the time, who was in his sling just a few days after his surgery. So there's no doubt he was injured. But those of you who deal with the military bureaucracy, you know what it can be like. So we've had to go to court to get something basic done, which is to get this man a Purple Heart. Obviously, he's passed away, but he could be awarded posthumously. And look, I have no doubt President Obama would agree with us. I have no doubt General Mattis, who's now Secretary of Defense, would agree with us. And obviously, President Trump would agree with us. This is a nonpartisan. It's not liberal, conservative. This is just a guy who was hurt during this terrorist attack, and he deserves a Purple Heart. It's simple. And the fact we have to go to federal court tells you more about the mindlessness of the government bureaucracies than anything else. But I'm hoping that senior folks in the Trump administration kind of pay attention to this and cut to the chase and get this guy his Purple Heart as quickly as possible and ease the pain his father suffers as a result of having to fight this battle on his deceased son's behalf. So, big case there. Speaking of outrages, I have one other thing to tell you about, and it's about Benghazi. It's a Benghazi cover-up, not by President Obama's Justice Department, State Department, but by this administration's State Department and Justice Department. And this is what happened. So when the Hillary Clinton emails were being released, the State Department was trying to purposely avoid classifying her emails, because the more emails they classified, the worse it looked for Hillary Clinton, who of course said there was no classified information on her emails. And one of the emails that they did not classify, or two of the emails, were details about calls President Obama made to two foreign leaders in the days after the attacks. So they said it's not classified, but it was B5. And we said, well, that's not deliberative process. B5 is the deliberative process privilege, which is communications about government decisions before they're made, more or less. But the administration came in and said, oh, no, we meant to classify that. And we said, hold on, you're not fooling us. This was not classified on purpose to protect Hillary Clinton, and you can't come in after the fact and try to classify it. Incredibly, this Justice Department under Jeff Sessions, this State Department under Rex Tillerson, came in and told the court Judicial Watch is not right. It was an accident. It was an oversight. We really meant to classify it. And unfortunately, the judge just bought it. So now we have a Benghazi cover-up, not by the Obama administration, but by the deep staters at the Trump administration. This is why the White House needs to intervene. And the Benghazi outrage is so serious, and the idea that this administration is protecting Hillary and Obama on it is just terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And again, this is another thing where I think the president would be on our side. You can see his dissatisfaction with the way the classification of the JFK papers has been handled. And he's pushing to declassify all those records. I have no doubt he wouldn't buy into this CYA attitude that the State Department had for itself and Hillary Clinton. Again, they were minimizing and they were purposely not classifying material to protect Hillary Clinton. We call them out on it. To enforce the rule of law, they wanted a get-out-of-jail-free card, which unfortunately the court gave them, with the help of this Justice Department and this State Department. Now, we're not done with Benghazi. We're still pushing for information on Benghazi, but it is frustrating to have to fight this administration for basic information about Benghazi. You want to know something else they're doing? Again, this State Department, this Justice Department, they're opposing our efforts to put Hillary Clinton under oath about her email handling and how it impacted our lawsuits for Benghazi. Remember, it was these Benghazi lawsuits that exposed, it was Judicial Watch that exposed the Hillary Clinton email scandal. And it's all tied together. You've got cover-ups on Benghazi, you've got cover-ups on the dossier, cover-ups on everything else Hillary Clinton was doing. So it's easier for them to stonewall us on Russia if they're allowed to stonewall us on Benghazi, they're allowed to stonewall us on Mueller's budget. And there's nothing legally requiring the Trump administration to sign on to any of this stonewalling. And Jeff Sessions, Rod Rosenstein, whoever is responsible, I don't know what Sessions is recused or not, whoever responsible has got to step up. Robert Ray and the FBI, they got to step up. Robert Mueller can't be allowed to control the entire United States government when it comes to the Russia scandal. That's the feeling I get. Certainly in terms of our document requests, they defer to him. And we can see this secrecy, illegal secrecy effort being furthered in the Benghazi scandal. And the American people are tired of it, and that's why they want to change. And so we're going to be pushing these battles in court still. We're not going to give up. I mean, eventually you give up if you lose enough, but we're not going to give up. We're not going to give up on this specific case I'm talking about. And this is why it's important you continue to support Judicial Watch, because we're in it for the long haul. And you can see why it is important to be in court to get the records. Everyone says, who cares? Remember the administration in one of our cases, actually in the case I'm telling you about with the 70,000 records, they were in court earlier this summer saying, well, they shouldn't have to release these records quickly because it's not, there's not much public interest. Huh. These scandals aren't going away. Hillary Clinton isn't going away. Government corruption isn't going away, and accountability is always in the public interest. So with that, I'll let you go. We'll have more for you next week. Have a great weekend. Tom Fitton with Judicial Watch signing off.